Let's now look at this passage. Look around you, on the train platform, at the bus stop, in the carpool lane. These days, someone there is probably faking it. Maintaining a job routine without having a job to go. The Wall Street type in suspenders with his bulging briefcase, the woman in pearls thumbing her BlackBerry, the builder in his work boots and tool belt, they could all be headed for the same coffee shop or bar for the day. I have a new client, a laid-off lawyer who's commuting in every day to his Starbucks, said Robert C. Shaw, a professor of counseling at San Francisco State University and president of the employment division of the American Counseling Association. He gets dressed up, meets with his colleagues, networks. He calls it his Western White House. I have encouraged him to keep his routine. The fine art of keeping up appearance may seem shallow and deceitful, the very embodiment of denial, but many psychologists beg to differ. To the extent that it sustains good habits and reflects personal pride, they say this kind of play active can be extremely effective social strategy, especially in uncertain times when you don't know whether you have a job or not. Keep up that facade. So it may sound deceitful, but psychologists say that this actually beneficial because it helps sustain good habits. If showing pride in these kinds of situations was always maladaptive, then why would people do it so often? Said David DeSteno, a psychologist at Northeastern University in Boston. But people do, of course, and we are finding that pride is essentially important not just for surviving physical danger, but for thriving in difficult social circumstances in ways that are not at all obvious. For most of its existence, the field of psychology ignored pride as a fundamental social emotion. It was thought to be too marginal, too individually variable. It was thought to be, mind you, compared with basic visceral expressions of fear, disgust, sadness, or joy. Moreover, it can mean different things in different cultures. This is what we used to think, right? But recent research by Jessica L. Tracy of the University of British Columbia and Richard W. Robbins of the University of California, Davis has shown that the expressions associated with pride in Western society, most commonly a slight smile and head tilt with hands on the hips or raised high, are nearly identical across cultures. Children first experience pride about age 2.5, studies suggest, and recognize it by age 4. It's not a simple matter of imitation either. In a 2008 study, Dr. Tracy and David Matsumoto, a psychologist at San Francisco State, analyzed spontaneous responses to winning or losing a judo match during the 2004 Olympic and Paralympic Games. They found that expressions of pride after a victory were similar for athletes from 37 nations, including for 53 blind competitors, many of them blind from birth. It's a self-conscious emotion reflecting how you feel about yourself, and this has important social component. Dr. Tracy said, it's the strongest status signal we know of among the emotions, stronger than a happy expression, contentment, anything. So we're talking about pride is very important. At the beginning of the passage, we say that even if you're out of a job, if you don't have a job, it's okay to continue your charade because that gives you pride, that gives you a sense of contentment. And then we say that historically we thought the pride was individual to individuals, but recently we realized that's similar for most people. Also, we first experienced pride at about age 2.5. This is also important, right? I think it's a simple passage. Let's look at the questions. In the milieu of economic and professional instability, when you don't have a job, what aspect of human comportment does the passage elucidate? We just discussed this. The beneficial facade of adherence to professional routines despite employment status. That's true. Yes. B says the psychological ramifications of joblessness or individual well-being. Well, individual well-being is not what we're talking about. C says the broader societal implications engendered by manifestations of pride. We are not manifesting pride. Also, it talks about societal implications. The passage only talks about individual implications. So C in a way is misleading. Okay. D says the deleterious implications of engaging in duplicitous behavior. Deleterious implications means negative, but the author is we've said that you should keep up the charade, right? E says the importance of financial planning during times of economic uncertainty. We have not discussed financial planning. We've just discussed that you should keep up the charade. If you don't have work, please keep maintaining the facade. Option A. What rationale underpins the historical oversight of pride within psychological inquiry? So we are strengthening historical oversight of pride. What was the historical oversight? This was the historical oversight, right? Dismissed as inconsequential to the dynamics of social interaction? Not really. Deemed inherently detrimental to psychological health? On the contrary, it's good for psychological health. Misconstrued as synonymous or overlapping significantly with happiness? We have not misconstrued it as synonymous. Perceived as excessively idiosyncratic and subject to individual variability. Now look at the question. It takes historical oversight of pride. So we're not talking about pride in general, we're talking about what we used to think about it historically. Yeah. So this is where you find your answer. E says viewed as temporary emotion with no long-term significance. We can't say that either. Maybe not, it has long-term significance. We don't know that. What insight is gleaned from the observational study of blind athletes regarding the nature of pride? If you remember, we said right? The expression of pride is ingrained and consistent across disparate cultures. Exactly what this means, right? It was similar to athletes from 37 nations, so it is consistent across disparate cultures. B says, visual impairment intensifies the manifestation of emotional expressions. No, there's nowhere mentioned that it intensifies the manifestation of emotional expression. C says the perception of triumph diverges markedly among visually impaired individuals. Maybe it does, maybe it does not. We're talking about pride per se, right? The nature of pride, that's the question. D says the magnitude of physical capabilities directly modulates emotional expressions. We're talking about the nature of pride again, so this is misleading again. We're not talking about physical capabilities and their with respect to emotional expressions. E says blind athletes have a unique way of expressing emotions compared to sighted athletes. Maybe they do, but it does not tell us anything about pride, so we can eliminate this as well. Option A. Next question says, given the universal and intrinsic characteristics of pride, what can be inferred about its role in the anthropological development of human societies? Simple. Inferred. So it is not mentioned, but what do you think would happen? And we're talking about anthropological development. So how did pride affect people while evolution was happening? A says a negligible trait within the socio-cultural evolution of early human collectives. It's not a negligible trait. B says an impediment to the development of communal harmony and empathetic relationships. Impediment means restriction. No, that's not true. An essential adaptive function for facilitating societal cohesion and hierarchical structuring. That's exactly what we're talking about. See, you come to realize pride at the age of 2.5 itself. So while during the anthropological development of societies, pride probably was responsible for social stratifying as well. That means hierarchical structuring and social cohesion. C looks good. D says a relatively recent evolutionary acquisition in the spectrum of human emotional behaviors. See, it's not a recent evolutionary acquisition. We've had it for time immemorial, right? E says a detrimental force that has historically caused more harm than good in human societies. Well, why would pride cause harm? Okay, so C is the best answer.